Hi everyone, this is the last video for today and we're talking about giving presents. So this is page 14 in your book, and today we're mainly talking about direct objects and indirect objects. So I have this pen, this marker. So I put this marker on my desk. I am the subject. I'm the one that's doing the action. I put this marker on the desk. I'm the subject. I did the action. The marker is a direct object. This is the thing that received my action. I put this marker down. So I put what down? I put the marker. So when you're looking for a direct object in a sentence, you ask yourself, what? I put what down? Or she gave dog food to the dogs. She gave what? She gave dog food. So before we get started on this direct object, before we get started on this, I wanted to explain that. Now, you will see at the top of your graph, the top of your page, look, there are some irregular verbs. And all of these irregular verbs are ones that we use a lot when we have indirect objects. I buy, I bought, I give, I gave, I send, I sent, I write, I wrote. So these are going to be used in your next exercise, number 2, practice. And I put it up on my share stuff so that we could go over it together so you could see what I was talking about. So let me find it. So if you go to your number 2 practice, all of those things that are checked off, they want you to write a sentence. So the first thing that is checked off is buy flowers for Sylvia. That's the present tense, but he did all of this yesterday. So number 1, they already answered for you. Joe bought flowers for Sylvia. The next thing that is on his to-do list from yesterday was to buy a card for Nick. So in the past tense, Joe bought a card for Nick. Number 3 was to write a letter to Pam. So in the past tense, it's Joe wrote a letter to Pam. Number 4 was to buy a cake for Mary and Judy. In the past tense, that's Joe bought a cake for Mary and Judy. Number 5 was to give roses to Eva. So number 5 is Joe gave roses to Eva. Number 6, send an invitation to Paul. So the past tense is Joe sent an invitation to Paul. So what we're going to do is we're going to underline the direct objects. So Joe bought what? Joe bought flowers. So that's your direct object. Number 2, Joe bought what? Joe bought a card. So card is your direct object. Number 3, Joe wrote a letter. Joe wrote what? He wrote a letter. So letter is your direct object. Number 4, Joe bought what? He bought a cake. So cake is your direct object. Number 5, Joe gave what? He gave roses. So roses is your direct object. Number 6, Joe sent what? He sent an invitation. So invitation is your direct object. Okay, so what do you see? Well, I'm gonna use my little spotlighter because I'm sort of getting attached to that thing. I like to do it. So Joe bought flowers for Sylvia. Sylvia received them. She is the receiver of the action. So she's not being acted upon, she's receiving it. So Sylvia is the indirect object. Joe bought a card for Nick. Nick is the indirect object. He will receive the card. So he's not like the primary in the primary action. He's just going to receive the end result. Joe wrote a letter to Pam. Pam is the indirect object. Joe bought a cake for Mary and Judy. So Mary and Judy are the indirect object. Joe gave roses to Eva. So Eva is the indirect object. Joe sent an invitation to Paul. So Paul is the indirect object. When you're writing out indirect objects, it's gonna follow prepositions a lot, like for or to, but not always, because when we speak, we don't always, when we write, we do that sometimes, but when we speak, we don't talk that way. Let me stop that. Did I stop it? Nope. Let me stop it again. Okay, so go ahead and write out these sentences, and just remember that the indirect object is the receiver of the action. My boss bought these markers for me. So me is the indirect object. I'm the receiver of the markers. Okay, so down here, they want you to do the same thing. They want you to complete the conversations, but instead of saying for Sylvia, for Mary and Judy, to Nick, to Paul, for Paul, instead of saying that, they want you to change it to the pronouns him, her, them, us, them, us. So I thought I would write those down. So I ran to the door. The mailman gave the package to me. You ran to the door. The mailman gave a package to you. He ran to the door. The mailman gave a package to him. She ran to the door. The mailman gave a package to her. It ran to the door, and let's hope the mailman's not giving packages to its. But it would also be the same for the indirect object. We ran to the door. The mailman gave a package to us. They ran to the door. The mailman gave a package to them. All right, so those indirect objects, we change those pronouns to me, you, him, her, us, and them. Did I get them all? Me, you, him, her, us, and them. So we have an audio track to go along with this writing. So you can pause this right now if you want to, and go ahead and fill this out, because I'm going to pause it and fill it out also, and then we're going to follow it along both on the ventures and written. So I'm just going to pause it for a second, if I can find my pauser. Okay, so as soon as you're done with that, we're going to, well, I hope you're done with that, because we are now fixing to go on to the next bit. And I'm going to show you how that would look using the him, her, them, us format. So let me scroll down just a little bit. And this is going to follow the same conversation that's in Ventures. So listen to it at the same time.
Page 126. Exercise 2A. Track 32. 1. What did Joe buy Sylvia?
Joe bought her flowers.
2. What did Joe buy Nick?
Joe bought him a card.
3. What did Joe write Pam?
Joe wrote her a letter.
4. What did Joe buy Mary and Judy?
Joe bought them a cake.
5. What did Joe give Eva?
Joe gave her roses.
6. What did Joe send Paul?
Joe sent him an invitation.
Okay, so that's kind of a really quick lesson on changing things from changing your irregular verbs from present to past, but also how to use pronouns that are indirect objects that are receiving the action. If I threw this eraser at you, then you would be receiving the action. Anita threw her eraser to them. You are receiving the action, but this is the object that's doing it, right? Well, I'm the actor. I'm the subject doing it. The eraser is the what. It's what's being thrown at you. And you are the indirect object. Anita is throwing the marker, the eraser, to them. Okay? So basically on the next page, they want you to do those conversations using indirect objects, him, her, us, them. All right? And then the same thing down here. Write down sentences using indirect objects, the him, her, them, us. Okay? So that's it. That's a really short one today, but it's an important one. It's really important to understand the difference between direct objects and indirect objects. So you guys be sure and write down your sentences so you can understand that. And if you didn't pick that all up, go ahead and go back through there so you can see it. And we'll be covering more of it, but definitely important to understand the difference between direct object and indirect object. So that's it for today. Woo! 3 videos. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.